Before we get started, I'd just like to show you how you can use this in a practical sense if you had to really do some adjustments to the body. The chroma keying was done because there was a little girl in the shot and we didn't want to freak her out having someone covered in blood next to her. So we did it all separately. All in all though, it came out really good, but if you follow the techniques you can learn how to replace someone's eyes just like I did here. Her eyes are brown and I just took a Google image of someone with green eyes and did some fogging up to it, make it look a little more decayed. The teeth are a mixture of mine and hers. The bottom row is mine, the top is hers. And the ripped out part of the jaw is actually just some clone stamping in Photoshop and bump mapping. So here we are in Mocha for After Effects version 2. You can find this in your After Effects CS5 program folder. If you go up here to the top left hand corner, create a new project, import clip, hit choose, find your footage. And by default, it sets everything up here, your frame rate, your pixel aspect ratio, so on and so forth. My pixel aspect ratio is not custom, so I'm just going to make absolutely sure it's okay. By finding what I have here, mine is NTSC anamorphic, so I'm just going to click on that. Everything else is fine, the location's fine. You can change it right here if you had to. By default, it goes here. So I just want it to go where my footage is. Hit OK. Here are your play controls, but you can also hit the space bar to play forward and backward depending on where you are in the timeline. Okay, looking good. Now up top here, if you're in Mocha for After Effects version 2 or higher, you're going to see a little boomerang and an X. So it looks like the boomerang is taking out the X. Your main focus here should be the X. If you highlight over it, it'll say Create X-Spline Layer Tool. If you're in Mocha Pro or any other program that you might be using from Imagineer Systems, your main focus is the X. You could also use the B, that's your Create Bezier Layer Tool, but I'm going to go with the X-Spline tool for this one. You could start literally anywhere for this, so I'm just going to go around here, just clicking away around his eye. Doesn't have to be perfect. Right click to close. If you're on a Mac, I want you to hold down the Command key and hit A. If you're on a PC, hold down Control and hit A. And that'll select all. Now you could also just click anywhere and drag. You can select half of them. Click and drag again, or just select all of them. It doesn't really matter as long as they're all selected. Go to any one of these blue tangents, click in, or click and drag in. Just get a wider area here. If you had too many points, or you didn't like a point, you can always highlight over it, right click, point, delete points. If you don't have enough points, you can always go up here with a little plus sign. It may look different in Mocha Pro, but if you highlight over it, it'll say Point Insertion Tool. Click and drag. Now this is not going to be smooth because it's a new point, so you're starting fresh, but that's fine. Just smooth it out by dragging the tangent down. You may want to turn that off after you're done, so just go back to the pixel. You don't want to start adding points by accident. And that's looking pretty good, so I'm going to track forward. Down here, the tracking controls you have. Track backward all frames. Track backward 1 frame, stop. Track forward 1 frame. Track forward all frames. I'm going to track forward all frames. As you can see here from after you've done tracking, you're going to have this blue here and this faded red over here. Now the blue, or purple, whatever you're looking at here, that represents what's tracked. The faded red is what isn't tracked. So if we click on any one of these points, or all the points, you're going to see right there we have a little keyframe. Now if we go to our play controls, see this little guy, he kind of looks like a play bar, but he has a nub at the end. Go to the next keyframe, and the other one is go to previous keyframe, so I'm going to go to previous keyframe. And now I'm going to track backwards all frames. Now if you started at the very beginning, you don't have to do that, but if you started in the middle because you wanted to get a wider area of information, then you're going to want to go that route. Alright, same rules apply for the other side, but before we do that, we're going to go to Layer Controls, double click on Layer 1, rename this Left Eye Track. You want to make absolutely sure that you put track for these, because we're not going to be using these for anything but tracking. Now go over here to this little gear, and if you highlight over it, it says Track This Layer. If you click it, there's a slice through the gear, and now you can no longer track it. Your track controls are out. If you had to track it again, which I highly doubt you have to, you can just click it again, and then you have your track controls back. And we're going to turn the eye switch off because we're sick of looking at it. So go back up to the X-Spline tool. Same thing for the other eye. Alright, I see a point I don't like. Points. Just go. Doesn't have to be perfect. I would suggest staying away from the nostrils and his mouth. You just want to focus on this general area here for our tracking information. The bridge of the nose is fine. You are going to have some scrunching in here, which I'll show in a second, but that's fine too because it's actually showing the power of Mocha. Select all, click your blue tangent, drag it in, and track forward all frames. Again, go into layer controls, renaming this right eye track. Now, same as before, I want you to turn off the track controls. Click into gear. Okay, now we're going to go over here to the right hand side. Now, if you're a Mocha Pro or any other version that may be newer, I'm not sure when you're going to be watching this, but in Mocha Pro, version 3 and possibly 2, I believe it's in 2, it'll be underneath your initial tools here, and it'll look like a grid, and it may be pink or purple depending on how you look at it. So go over here to grid, and there you go, and we're going to hit play. Now the grid represents our track, then it's just showing you that everything's following it nicely. Now if we hit on stabilize, this is not affecting your footage at all, as you can see here if I zoom out. It's literally just focusing on that, and anything here is transparent, but it's not going to export your footage like this, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you take a good look here, you can see there's a little bit of scrunching going on inside of the grid when he starts to come at you. But that's fine, because this is exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to click Stabilize Off and Grid Off. And stop that. Now let's go over some shortcuts here. Holding down the Z key, you'll see you get the magnifying glass there. It's also up top here if you just want to use it as a standalone tool. But if you hold it down and click and drag up or down, you can just zoom in on the fly. Now if you're at this point and you want to go 100% inside of the program, you can literally just hold down Z and click, and then it'll go to 100%. This may be 110 or 200 depending on how big your screen is and the resolution of it, but that's fine. Hold down the X key, and you have your little hand guy here. So you can click and drag everything around, which is also up top right next to the magnify. I highly suggest using the shortcuts. So let's just do this. I'm going to turn off the eye switch here for the right eye track so that I see nothing. So let's just drag through here. Okay, now I'm at a point where I can see both of his eyes are almost all the way open. That's about as good as it's going to get. Back to the X-spline tool. Now we're going to get started on taking out the eyelids individually. So let's go over here to the bottom one. Go right into the goo of his eye here. Just start gliding around the eyelid itself, and I want you to go down here. This may seem a little ridiculous to people that use Photoshop and After Effects pen tool, but it's definitely a better technique than trying to cut out his actual eye. There's a lot of movement going on, and we don't have to sacrifice time in this. That's alright. We're going to add some more points to this because it's a little crappy. So, go to the point insertion tool. Now what I want you to do is make a U. We're going to be going up, okay, in a U formation. So let's just click here. Anywhere you want to click, it's fine. Start to form your U. Now you could have done this initially. I'm just going to show you how to do it now. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to stop anywhere in between his forehead. We're just going to be using this information as a bridge for the other eyelid, which I'll explain in a minute. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Be careful not to go too fast with the zooming, because it will just start to reset itself and all that. It's a pain in the ass. A lot of extra points being made here. My version of Mocha for After Effects is a little buggy. I have a problem with updating. I just don't do it because I'm an idiot. You get the general idea. It's not perfect, it's not pretty, but it works. So, select all. Click on a blue tangent, drag it in. And let's just take a look here by clicking off. That's looking pretty good. Now before we do anything, let's rename this. We're going to rename this left eye lid. Make sure you put lid. And then indicate which one it is by putting bottom or top. Bottom, okay? So, with that highlighted, you'll know it's highlighted because there's going to be two lines above and underneath it. We're going to go down here to the layer properties, where it says link to track. I want you to link it to the left eye track. And hit play. This is where stabilize comes in handy, because I could see there's a big spill here going on with his eyelid. Now we're not going to have that problem with the top part. Well, maybe not as much as this, but this isn't really that big of a deal. In After Effects, we would have to literally keyframe just about every other frame or every frame to even get half of these results. But since we have it all tracked, it's going to be a breeze. So let's just go over here where it starts to spill. This is not After Effects keyframing, so keep that in mind when you're doing this. You don't have to set up an initial keyframe before you start moving things around. As I'll demonstrate now. I play again. See, we're almost done now. That's ridiculous. What are we doing here? Like 2 keyframes and we're almost done with this? Anyone that's ever tried to do traditional rotoscoping in After Effects knows that this is a huge pain. And we're just saving time now. Saving time in rotoscoping is great for clients, and it's great for you because you could take more jobs in the long run. So keep that in mind. If you want to be a rotoscoping artist, speed is a huge factor. I'm looking at my viewfinders here. So even though I'm zoomed in all the way here, I always take a look at these guys because I could be out here and they'll still be magnified. When you highlight any point, as you can see if you're looking at the left hand side, the current frame will show you where it's at inside of that current frame and previous keyframe or next keyframe. It's an amazing little feature. Now if you don't want to hit play because it's playing too fast, you can click on the little black line here inside of your timeline. Click and drag it around at your own speed. Looking good to me. Now we're going to save it. You always want to save. Save project. Okay? You can save project as. Do whatever you got to do, just as long as you're saving it. Now let's turn the eye switch off for this. You don't have to turn the track off because we're not going to be tracking anymore. So it's fine. Same rules apply for the top. So let's just do the top now. X-Spline tool. Go in the gooey part. Go around his eyelid. Now we're going to make an N shape. Going around here. Right click to close. Always keeping in mind that the creation of new points that you didn't want, get rid of them. It's just more of a hassle for you in the long run if you have more than you need. That's looking good. Select all, squeeze them in. Take a look at this. Now I want you to go through each individual point. This may seem a little tedious, but you want to get it right the first time, so just take a look at what's happening. Now we're going to go to the top here, layer controls, name this left eyelid underscore top. Extremely important. You have to indicate what is what here, or you're going to get all jumbled up because we're going to have double these in a minute. Okay, link to track, left eye track, and hit play and watch the fun. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I mean, not really seeing too much spill. I'm just going to take a closer look here. Okay, I see a little bit. This is where the current keyframe window comes in handy. Just going to bring them down. Simple as that. Might even get away with 2 keyframes on this one. trouble there. And we're good. So I'm going to hit save. Now I'm going to go back to the bottom one, the bottom eyelid, and I'm going to turn the eye switch back on. And as you can see here, kind of looks like an H. Now what we did was isolate the area of the eye. So if we go up here to Mattes, click on Mattes, you see it's colorized, obviously because this color is there, but you see that the selected layer is red. If you go down to this one, it'll turn red too. We have these Christmas colors going on here. Now you can look at it like this. If you wanted to, you can always turn off overlays, get a better idea what's happening here. I prefer to turn off overlays and colorize and just take a look like this. Now what did this do? The gray areas here represent transparency. So the inside of the eye is also transparent. All of this information is going to be taken into consideration and exported for After Effects so that we can have this as a cookie cutter. I'm going to pause here and just zoom in a little bit. As you can see, it's not smooth at all. It looks like you just took a pair of scissors and cut it. Sometimes the magnifying tool just pisses me off. It just looks like you took a pair of scissors and cut it out. Now how do we smooth it out? Now we can do it here in Edge Properties. You have the edge width and all that. You can set it to every keyframe or all keyframes. It's a waste. I mean, it's there for a good reason, especially if you're not using After Effects and you just want to use this for whatever reasons. You want to do it all here and then dump it in and then be done with it. You're literally tripling your time if you do it like that. What this is going to do is take and turn on overlays, colors. All this information here is going to be translated into masking information for After Effects. Now the same rules apply for the other side. You can also turn these guys off so you don't have to look at them. You're going to want to set up a U for the bottom eyelid and an N for the top. If you have to, you can always rewind and then just follow the same steps for the other side so you don't get frustrated. I'm going to go make some coffee and pause it here, and I'll be back in about 2 seconds. So if you have to, just pause it and do your other side. Alright, so my right eye is done. I'm going to hit play. You can see everything's working out great. Stabilize on. Did the same thing as the left hand side. The only difference is when the right eyelids are there, you want to link the track to the right eye track, which is pretty self-explanatory, but if you didn't do that, you're probably going to run into some problems with keyframing. I mean, you might not run into problems, but just keep it in mind. Right eye track, left eye track for each side. Alright, let's turn the eye switches on for the left side. Turn overlays off. Click on Mattes. Turn off colorize. And hit play. Now I connected the nose here, but you don't have to. I mean, just as long as everything's connected with the eye here and the sockets, and you have no spill in between, you're good to go. Turn stabilize off. That is just all kinds of disturbing, and I hope it gave you all nightmares. So we're going to stop that. We're going to turn colorize back on. You don't have to turn that back on. Turn mattes off and overlays on. And now we're going to jump over to After Effects. So I'm going to assume that most of you know how to use After Effects. If you don't, then that's fine. We'll just go through some tips here. Now my setup is, it has Effects Controls as the first tab. If you go to the left here, you'll see Project. I want you to click on that, if you're not already on it. Over here you'll see Name and Type, or whatever else you see if your window's expanded. You can either double click in this window here, or you can go up top here to File, Import, File, and then find your footage, highlight it, and hit open, or just double click on it. Okay, now that it's in here, you'll see this little icon. That doesn't matter, it'll actually give you all the specs here, that's fine. What you want to do is take this and drag it down to this little icon here, the third one to the right. Or you could drag it right over here and release, and then it'll go in. You could play through just by hitting the space bar, just like before. Now here's the problem. If we're inside of Mocha, we could literally start here, export our shape data or our tracking data, but we can't import it in the timeline at this point. So you could start anywhere inside of Mocha to export. Importing, you have to be at the very beginning. If you want to make absolutely sure you're at the beginning, you can hit the home key and it'll shoot you right back to the start. So let's go back into Mocha. Now I want you to make sure, go through here and scrub through. Make absolutely sure that all of your eyelids are visible by looking at the eye switches here, and that your tracks are not visible by having the slashes through the eyeballs. It's very important. You can highlight any one of these eyelids here. Go with the first one. Go down to Export Shape Data. As you can see here, it'll be on Selected Layer. I want you to go to All Visible Layers. Click on that, and then you'll have it highlighted there in that little nub. You could save it, but I want you to copy it to clipboard. Shoot back to After Effects, making absolutely sure we're at the beginning. Now there's two methods to this, but we're just going to go through the first one here, the easier one. Go to Layer, New, Solid. And then down here where it says color, you'll see this rectangle box that looks black, or whatever color you have. Make sure it's on white, and by doing that you can go down here and put in a series of F's, or just click and drag it right up to the left hand corner there. Hit OK. Highlight over the name, and we're going to call this eyes cut. Now go down to your footage here, okay, where whatever it's called, zombie or whatever it is, it'll be underneath the new layer that you just created. I want you to duplicate it. To do that, you go up to Edit, scroll down to Duplicate, or you can use the keyboard shortcut on the right hand side of it. Now that we have two of them, let's turn the bottom one off. Go back up to eyes cut, or whatever you named it, making sure we're at the beginning. Go to up top here to Edit, paste Mocha mask. Now what that did was it made everything that we had in Mocha and translated it into mask. So if we highlight over the eyes cut layer, hit the M key, you'll see our mask path keyframes here. Translated all into keyframes. Now if you want to see everything that the masks can do, hit M twice, very fast, just 1, 2. You see the mask path, feather, opacity, and expansion. Just hit play, scrub through, wait until the subject is all the way towards the screen so we can get a better idea what's happening here. Now they're still very choppy, but we're going to do some feathering to that. So let's go here, highlight the eyes cut layer and hit the F key. You may have to hit it twice to collapse and then re-expand it. Now all we see is our mask feathering options. So I want you to go up to each individual mask here. They're all set to blue, but you could change it by hitting on the little blue square there. Change it to red if you want. Green. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you want it to be. As you can see here, they're different colors. Not a big deal. So highlight the first one, go down to the last one, hold down the Shift key, and click on the last one. Now they're all selected. Go up to the very first one, the middle one, it doesn't matter. Any one of these feather options here. Click on the zeros. I want you to put 1. And then click off of it. Now all these will be set to 1 because we have them all selected. And you can see there's a little blur there. That's the feathering option. So if we just do that again, you can see that we can go to a very crazy extreme here, or we could just do it very slight. We could even go 0.5 if we want. I usually go 0.5 because it's not extreme, but it's there and it's working. Let's save this. Always be saving. Yes, I'm going to replace that. I want you to remember to always save. You can do the keyboard shortcuts if you want. File, save is. For Mac, it's Command S, whatever it is for PC. Just keep that in mind. Always keep saving. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's go highlight the eyes cut layer, hit M again to collapse. Hit it twice if you have to. Now I want you to go to the middle layer here, the one that we duplicated, the one that's actually on. Okay? Now if you're seeing what I'm seeing here, you're just going to see a series of icons. You're going to see source name, all these different icons here, the motion blur icon and all that, and parent. I want you to go down to the bottom here where it says toggle switches / modes. Click on that, and then you'll see source name, mode, T, track mat, and parent. Now you want to see track mat there. Now you don't have to highlight this layer, but I want you to highlight it so that you get a better idea where you're at. So highlight the layer that's on, our actual footage layer. Go to the right of it where it says track mat, and alpha mat eyes cut. Now what that did was it cut everything out here that wasn't, well, wherever white was is the cutter, so that cuts everything out. Wherever it's black is transparent. So you can go down here, toggle transparency grid. As you can see, it's checkerboard now. Anyone familiar with Photoshop knows that this represents transparency. So everything in there is cut. You can see the feather that we put in here if we go back to it. Hit the F key. Select the first one, go down to the bottom, hold down Shift, click, and we can put it to 3 now just to be ridiculous. You can see that the feathering is working out just fine. Now you could go to 1 if you want, but I prefer 0.5 because I don't want it to be completely obvious that I'm doing this. There we go. It's looking good enough to me. I'm just going to hit play. Same as in Mocha, but without the gray background. Now it's black or checkerboard. Alright, and if you really want to freak yourself out, you can just keep doing this. Turn the bottom layer back on. We're going to leave this on now, and we're going to collapse this tree again. So hit M, M. I want you to highlight the eyes cut layer, the layer underneath it, which is the one that we used to cut, okay? Now that you have those two selected, by holding down Shift or Control, whatever it is you have, whatever system you're on, just make sure that they're both highlighted. Go to Layer, all the way at the bottom here where it says pre-compose. And I get this little window here, new composition name. It's by default going to be pre-comp 1 or 2 or whatever, how many comps you have in there. Delete that. Let's call this eyes matte, M-A-T-T-E. As you can see, it became one layer. Now, if you're not familiar with pre-comping, just double click on it, and then you can go right back into it, and it opens up a new tab right here. Here's our original tab, and here's a new tab. You can even close it if you don't like looking at it. If you're on CS4 After Effects, I believe you have to hold down the Alt Option key and double click on it, but in CS5 it does this. So don't quote me on that. I think it's been a while. I don't know. We're on version 6 now, so keep that in mind. You might not have to run into those problems. So back to our tab here, our original tab. You can even close that because I'm good. We're gonna start putting things behind here. So let's do layer, new, solid. Let's make it white. And drag it in between these two layers. And there you go. You can see that we have this going on. Then that's not what we're looking to do. So let's go to the very beginning here. Or actually, we can go anywhere. It doesn't really matter. I want you to go up top here to your tools and highlight over the pen tool. And as you can see, it has a G there. So if you hit the G key, that's your keyboard shortcut to the pen tool. Anyone familiar with Photoshop and not After Effects knows that the pen tool is the P key. Don't ask me why they put it on a G. I have no idea. Adobe's strange. So now what I want you to do is make sure you're highlighted on the white solid layer you just created. Because if you're not, you're going to ruin everything. So highlight over that and then start clicking away. You can even click and drag it so you can get a Bezier tool here. It doesn't have to be pretty though, so you could just start doing some connected dot stuff, whatever you want to do. Just keep going. And there we go. We can have that. So let's name this. Go up to the white solid layer you just created. Hit enter. And we're going to rename this left eye egg because it looks like a friggin' egg. So here's an interesting problem. Now how do we fix this? Well, we got to use our tracking data. So back into Mocha. I want you to scroll down here in your layer controls. Since we're doing the left eye first, we're going to highlight over the left eye track. Making sure that we're highlighted over it, you'll see that there's a bracket up top and bottom, just 2 lines that are going across the actual layer itself. Go down here to export data, and I want you to export tracking data. Now you got a couple things here. You got CS3, corner pin, corner pin, corner pin, and transform data. Make sure you're on transform data, just by clicking on that. Now you can save it as a text file, but I want you to copy it to clipboard. Shoot back over to After Effects. Now the first rule that we talked about was going to the very beginning before we paste any information, whether it be tracking information or rotoscoping information. So hit the home key or just scroll back by clicking on this little nub here. Making sure that we're at the very beginning. Pay no attention to that, that's fine. Go to layer, new, null object. That'll set up a little red box there. You can actually change the color of that if you want to make it more apparent that it's there by going in here, clicking on this little square, making it blue or whatever other color. It is useless, so you can actually go over here to the eye switch, just turn it off so that you don't have to see that. Now, again, making sure that we're at the beginning, highlight over the new null, and paste. Now you can do the keyboard shortcut for paste, or go up to edit, paste, and find your keyboard shortcut, or just click on it. Highlight on that null, hit the U key, and you'll see we have anchor point, position, scale, and rotation. Anchor point is useless. Now sometimes when you're opening this thing or collapsing a tree by hitting the U key, all of them will be selected. And I'm going to tell you how to turn off these stopwatches here, but I don't want you to make absolutely sure that you're not highlighted on all of them. So just click off of them, like right at the bottom there, anywhere you want. Just make sure that you're not highlighted on all of them when you do this. Highlight just the anchor point. And you'll know that that's the only one highlighted by seeing these are all yellow instead of gray. Now go over here to this little stopwatch icon and click it and turn it off. Anchor point is useless. Save again. Now I want you to scrub through. Let's turn off the eyes matte layer that we made so that we can get a good idea where everything is. Alright, that's the point we're at. Now this is the wrong way to do it, but I'm doing this for demonstration purposes, so keep that in mind. Highlight over the null. Hit return or enter, whatever the hell you want to call it. Call this left eye track. Now, the left eye egg layer, or whatever you named it, your eye layer, you can turn eyes matte back on if you want. I want you to highlight on that eye layer. Now you see this little guy here, it says parent, and you see this little swirly line. You can click on the swirly line, or circle, whatever you want to call it. And then you have this little drag around fun guy. It's called the pick whip. And you can drag it right over to the left eye track and release, and then you'll see here in parent it'll say left eye track. I'm going to undo that, because you don't necessarily have to use this as your tool for that, but it is nice if you're just trying to do it fast, or if you're using it for expressions on other layers and stuff like that. That's a tutorial for another time. So we're going to go to parent, where it says none on the layer. Make sure you highlight it so you can see where you're at. Where it says none, I want you to click that, and then you can actually go here to left eye track. It does the same exact thing. Now what did that do exactly? Well, it parented all the information to this layer. Now he has an egg in his eye and it's following him around. Now if we click off, you get a better idea what's happening. This gives you an idea how the feathering's working. If you want to do it, if you actually want to do it that way, that's fine. You want to change the transparency on this. Give him a cloudy eye. That looks ridiculous, so we're not going to do that. Just going to play it through. That's fine. Save. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing for the right eye, but we're not going to use this egg anymore, so let's turn that off. Go back to Mocha. Highlight over the right eye track this time. Again, making sure that you have a line under and above the layer itself so you know it's selected. Export tracking data. Make sure it's on transform. Copy to clipboard. Back into After Effects. Go to the beginning. The very beginning, hit the home key if you have to. Layer, new, null object. Rename it right eye track. Paste. Hit the U key. Now you see that it's all selected. If I was to go and hit that, it would just turn them all off. Very annoying. Make sure you click away from it. Then just turn the anchor point off. Save again. Like I said before, we're not going to be using this egg, so we're just going to delete that by highlighting it and hitting delete. Go up to layer, new, solid. Make sure it's white by clicking and dragging it all the way up to the left hand side. Hit OK. Let's go up to name, call this left eye. Okay, now go up to the eye switch here, turn it off. Now take the left eye and put it underneath the eyes matte layer, just like before. Alright, now with the left eye highlighted, you have to have it highlighted. I want you to scrub through until you see most of the eye is open, okay? Without any motion blur, if you can. Yeah, right at that point. Now, by default, up here in your tools, right to the left of your pen tool here, you're going to see rectangle tool, if you highlight over it. I want you to click and hold, and then you get all these options here. I want you to go down to the ellipse tool. It'll be right in the middle. It'll look like an oval. Now make sure that you're highlighting on the left eye that you just created. That's solid. Hold down the shift key. Click and drag, and you'll get a perfect circle. Otherwise, you're going to get this oval. So hold down shift, click and drag. Go up to your pointer tool here, your selection tool, or you're going to hit the V key for the shortcut. Now any one of these dots here, I want you to double click on any one of them, and you get this little bounding box. Click it and try to center it on the eye. It doesn't matter if it's centered because you're going to be dragging this around. Now go up to any one of these corners, hold down the shift key, click and drag. What you want to do is get rid of any color in the eye. You want to have the mask all around that. Like that is fine. Okay. Turning that layer back on, you can see what we're up to here. Now it looks like crap, but we're going to fix that. So with the left eye layer selected, you're going to see mask 1. I want you to hit M twice so that we have all these options here. Highlight over mask 1 and duplicate it, either with the shortcut or going to edit, duplicate. Now you see mask 2. Now hit M twice again, or however many times until you get all this here. Now the first mask, I want it to be on add. By default, they're both on add on the mode. If you click on it, you can see all these different options here. Make sure the first one is on add. The second one, mask 2, I want you to click on where it says add. Turn that to subtract. Now go down here to mask expansion. Now if you're not seeing this, again, I want you to hit M twice as fast as you can, and then you'll see it. Now for the mask expansion on mask 2, I want you to go click on the zeros so that it's highlighted, put in a minus and 2. And you see here we have a donut, which is okay, I guess. It's not, you know, not the greatest thing in the world. Let's go minus 4. Okay, and the first one we're going to go 2. Now that looks ridiculous. He has a button for the for his eye there. So just keep messing around with it until you find something you like, depending on how wide you want this to be. If you want it to be like that. That looks totally unrealistic though. Let's go here. It's okay. It's a little extreme for me. Go to the top mask expansion, hit 0. Drag this guy in a little bit more there. So you don't have to go on the mask 1. Alright, here, let me explain. Mask 1 doesn't have to have an expansion, but if your mask isn't all the way around the coloring of the eye, or if you want to leave a little bit of the rim around it, you can mess around with that. Your main focus is the negative properties of mask 2. Because you want to go in. That's not bad, especially with the rim there, but it might give me problems later, so I'm just going to go to 0. Just for some testing, I'm going to go -4 on this, see how that works for me. And it's not working at all, so I'm going to go back to -3. Make sure that you're highlighted on the left eye layer. For the parent, I want you to set it to the left eye track. And hit play. And we're going to see what we got here. Now we have some noticeable drift there. I'll play it one more time so you can see it. It's going to the left, it's going back to the right, and it's way too high here. So how do we fix that? Well, we can go up to the left eye track position controls and go keyframe by keyframe, or we could just go to the left eye layer that we created, highlight over it, and hit the P key. And now we have secondary position controls. So we have our initial position controls here, and it's set to this left eye track layer, and we have our own layers position controls here. So once you hit the P key, you're going to see position and the stopwatch. Hit the stopwatch. Keep an eye on the eye here, no pun intended. You could hit play, but I wouldn't recommend it, because we want to scrub through it. So just click, hold down that little nub up top there in the timeline and start dragging through until you see the drift. Now you can use the arrow keys for this because the layer is selected. Make sure that you select it on the left eye layer. Hit down a couple times, left a couple times, whatever works for you. And hit down. Depending on your project, it may be different. Okay, we have a problem there. So back to this initial keyframe. Highlight on left eye again, so that we see the mask. Start dragging back. Going right a couple times because I know it's drifting to the left. You have to delete keyframes, that's fine. Just highlight over them and hit delete. Always keeping in mind that you want to click off of it so that the mask disappears so you can see what you're working with here. This is all trial and error. It shouldn't take you too long though. It really depends on your project, huh? It's looking pretty good. There is a problem though. It's way too clean. So highlight over left eye. Go up top here to layer, solid settings. On the white rectangle, I want you to click on that. Start to drag this down into the grayish areas here. You can see the change there, but I want you to go back and forth, look at it from different perspectives. Hit OK. It's looking a lot nicer. He looks like he has cataracts now, you know. You could put another gray in there if you want, or a black. Let's try that actually. I want you to go to the left eye layer, go to Edit, Duplicate. Now on the bottom one, I want you to hit M, go up to Mask 2, highlight it, hit Delete. Now let's rename this bottom one here, Left Black. Go up to, with that highlighted, go up to Layer, Solid Settings, click on the rectangle there where it's gray, bring it all the way down to black, or whatever color you want, hit New, and it's looking pretty good. Let's hit play. Might be a little too extreme, you know. If you want to, you can always go to the left eye, hit M twice. We have it on, what, -3? Let's go -4 now. highlight the left eye here. I'm going to go over to Effects and Presets. It should be on your right hand side. If you don't see it, then you can always go up here to Effect and then look for it. But Effects and Presets is should be your favorite tab here because there's so much you could do with it. Type in bevel or BEV and then anything related to that will come up. Go to Bevel Alpha, not Edges, Alpha. Drag it over to the left eye. Release, and then you see we got this nice bevel on there, and now that's starting to look cartoony again, so turn this down to 1 maybe. It's not looking too bad. It's bringing a little more life into it, you know. You can toggle it on and off and just keep an eye on it. You can adjust the light angle here. Bring it over to the right. You can change the light color if you want. Like a red. Red's not really doing much. It almost looks like a fake 3D thing going on now. It really depends on your preference here. I'm going to go with the gray for the light color. Toggle it on and off again. It's looking a little better to me. Now let's go to left eye again, where it says mask feather. If you're not seeing that, hit the M key twice, or you can even just hit F. For the feather, let's turn this to 1 and 1 on both of them. Or you can do 2. Yeah, it's looking a lot better now with the feather in there. Now, like I said, the bevel is an option you can use. You don't have to use it. The feathering is definitely something you want to take into consideration. Maybe even going more inside. Like put 3 inside. 5 if you want. 5's looking a lot more disturbing. But I'm going to go with 4 for the inside. Oops. And 2 for the outside. Nothing more unrealistic than perfect edges on everything. Now that we have our feathering done, let's go over and highlight the left eye again. If it's not highlighted, hit F again, and then it'll all disappear. That's good. Now, let's take these 2 layers here, left eye and left black. Highlight them both by holding down the Control key and clicking on one or the other. You can click on the first one, hold down Shift, and click the second one. Either way, they're both selected. Go down to Edit, Duplicate. Let's drag these above the eye mat so that we have a breaker there so we can see what we're doing. Now for left eye, I'm going to rename this right eye. And for left black, I'm going to rename this, get rid of that too, and name this right black. Alright, so highlight the 2 again. Hit the P key. Turn off the stopwatches for both of these. Now I want you to go to right black. Take the pick whip and drop it on the right eye. We're only going to be setting up position controls for the right eye, and the right black will just follow it. So before we do that, let's just drag it over to the right. You can hold down the Shift key and drag it. Make life a little bit easier on you. Use the arrow keys once you get to this point. There we go. Yeah, it's looking good. Now highlight the right eye and the right eye black. Drag them again underneath the eye mat. Eyes mat layer, whatever you call that. And we're looking good. So, highlight over the right eye layer. Drag it over to the right eye track with the pick whip. Release it and hit play. And let's see if we have any drift. Well, he definitely looks cockeyed there, so we're going to have to do some adjustments. So go on right eye, hit the P key if you're not seeing the position controls there. Click on the stopwatch, setting the initial keyframe for it. Start dragging it back. Same as before. Just highlight it and drag it around. If you don't want to see what you're working with, click off of it. Make sure you click back onto it and not another layer so that we know what we're working with here. Right twice, clicking off of it. Maybe one more time. And there you have it. Save. Alright, and there you go. So we're going to keep saving. Save 1,000 times if you have to. Now you can do whatever you want with this. You can put any color you want in the eyes. You can put red, blue, green. You can put an illusional thing going on in there, just a gradient that keeps swiping through if you want to make him look like he has magic. I wanted to make him look menacing, and that worked out perfect for me. Now another thing we can do here is go to the right eye and the left eye and highlight both of them. I'm holding down the command key and clicking on both. It really depends on your system. Now go up top here, where it says, if you highlight over it, it looks like a ball in motion. Highlight over it, it says enables motion blur for blah 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 blah. Click on that, and then you'll see it's indented inside of there. Now with these two selected, you get a better idea what's happening here. Now if you're looking at mode, track matte, and parent, again go to toggle switches and modes. Now you see all these little icons again. Just like this guy, you'll see a little one right there, and that indicates the motion blur for the layer. So what we did was we enabled motion blur for the composition. This icon represents motion blur for the layers. So keeping in mind that that's there, you just scroll down to your layer where it's highlighted, turning both of them on for the left eye and the right eye. Now what did that do? Well, let's keep an eye on the right eye here and toggle it on and off. What it's doing is it's making a forced motion blur. It's faking motion blur. So as you can see here, there's motion blur in his face, and now there's motion blur in his eyes. So any movement, it'll actually calculate everything that's going on in there and put it in there to make it look more realistic. Now if you're not happy with those results, the feathering options are definitely helping out. If you want to make sure that these are in focus at all times, which is, you know, a little weird, but if you're trying to stylize it in any way like that, then that's fine. I'm not going to knock your work. But if I was to put fake eyes in there instead of doing this donut method, I would always use motion blur on the layers. Just making sure that you have it enabled for the comp and the layers before you do anything. Save again. Okay, the next tutorial I'm going to be going through how we do the bump mapping and the texturing for the skin, his ears, his arms, and his neck, and give him some Freddy Krueger skin and things like that to make him look like he just jumped out of a fire. Somebody's trying to kill him or something. I'm Stephen Miller from KeySource Media, and thanks for watching.